Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Rick DeYoung. I am the Artist and Educator Relations Manager here at KHS America, and we are very excited to have you join us for another one of our amazing clinics as part of our virtual education series. Tonight's clinic, titled Building Firm Foundations for the Beginning Percussionist, has been done at TMEA, and if you happen to have been at Midwest this past winter, you had a chance to see the amazing percussion teacher down at he's at Byron Nelson High School, as well as two middle schools, Medlin Middle School and Tidwell Middle School, and that is John Bingaman. And we're also excited this evening, he has some students with him from both his Medlin Middle School and Tidwell Middle School to help in his clinic for this evening. Want to also remind you that at the bottom there is a questions tab that if you want to ask questions, go ahead and click on that tab and ask the questions on the side. And then near the end of the presentation, we'll let John know about the questions that that you have there for him, and then he will try to get to as many of those as possible. I also want to remind you that this is part of our virtual education series where you can get a certificate for an hour of professional development. You should be receiving an email immediately following the event. Also want to let you know that near the end of this presentation, there'll be some handouts that are available that you can download from the chat section. So because this is live and you've taken the time to attend this, please take advantage of the fact that you can engage and interact with the clinician, because this will also be available on our website as well as all previous virtual education series. So we are very excited as KHS America to welcome tonight's clinician, Mr. John Bingaman.
Hello. As Rick mentioned, my name is John Bingaman. I'm the percussion instructor at Byron Nelson High School in Trophy Club, Texas. That's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where I also teach at Tidwell and Medlin Middle School. I am responsible for percussion 6 through 12. So I get the honor and privilege of being able to teach students from the time that they pick up drumsticks to the time that they graduate and pursue other things, and some of which sometimes pursue even careers in music. So I've done this long enough to have students that are professional musicians now that I started in 6th grade. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is doing how important beginning percussion is in the percussion class, how we structure it, how you make it successful, and ultimately how to get the most out of it. First of all, being a beginning percussion teacher, you feel like a lot of your progress is tied up into that. If you are having a great beginning percussion class, you feel like there's hope for the future. You feel like that everything's working out, and that's a pretty good indication. If you show me a great percussion program, I can show you where some kids were doing some great things at that age, 6th and 7th grade. So let's move right into the slide now. I talked about the first thing, which is finding the right percussion students. Now, what I mean by that is your testing and the way that you do that. Let's go ahead and go to that next slide. When we want to cast the widest net possible, make sure that you've got a great community relationship, that people know about your band program. They know that how the testing goes. They know how to sign up, and that you've got positive things going on. I like to set up my testing dates individually. Now, you can do it at all with the percussion testing with everyone else, all the wind instruments, that's certainly fine. But I set up appointments so that the students are not necessarily waiting in the line. I use Sign Up Genius to do that. My audition process is a 2-round process, meaning that they come in for a first round and I give them some different things. They play with a piece of music to show that they can hold time. In other words, I'll put on a piece of music and and I demonstrate with them. I'll go, okay, all I want you to do is keep time and say, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb, right? I demonstrate what I want them to do. Then I put on a piece of music and I see if they can keep time. Now, how did they get the sticks in their hands? I also show them how to hold sticks and play. And I think that's really important to see that first gauge of how they hold the sticks. It can seem like a bit much, but it's not. You'll see right away students that are sort of getting it. They're kind of getting that rebound stroke because that's ultimately what you're trying to go for. And some kids will surprise you. They'll come right in and just do something crazy like that. And so it's really nice to have that. I do coordination, where they have to move their feet and their hands at the same time. So in other words, they'll be playing like 1, 2, 3, 4, or something more advanced, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay. I don't know if you can hear my foot tap just going straight like that, but those are some really good indications of their coordination. And then lastly, I play, you play. Then they play, right? So those are some good things that I do with that. The second round is the same, only I don't necessarily have their parents in because I want to talk with them on the second round. I want to talk about their intentions. What drew them to percussion? Do they understand that it's holistically percussion? Do they understand that it's mallets and timpani and accessories and drums, that it's not necessarily a drum set class? I want to talk to them and get their honest answers. I also have mallets a part of the second round so that they can at least see what it is. I don't ask them to do much, but I do have them play a little bit, play a scale or something. I just show them what it is. And just so that they know, once again, that that's part of it. Let's go to the next slide. Another thing that I do is the circles and X's concept. And as you see, there's 4 circles in each group, and some of them have X's. So what I do is I say, okay, how many circles do you see? And they say, oh, there's 4 of them in each group. And I go, all right, well, we're going to count to 4. And I literally point at the circles on the dry erase board and we count together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we go down to the next line. Okay, all right. And then they say, all right, I want you to clap every time there's an X, but do everything you just did, count. And try it with me. You can do this in your computer. Just give it on a shot. Ready? 1, 2, beginning, and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's a really good indicator. Like when that happens, you can see if a student can see something visually and manifest it physically. They don't know how to read music yet unless they've had a piano background or something, but that's a really good way to see if they can process that information, some information, and communicate it in a physical way. So that's a really good one to do. So that's things that I would strongly consider is, can they keep time when that song is on? If they can't feel where the beat is when the piece of music is on, I would really, that's something you want to consider. Look at their coordination. Another one to look at is how non-dominant they are. And what I mean by that is their right hand is decent and their left hand is completely unable to play. The non-dominant hand is always going to be a little weaker, but it shouldn't be unable to perform anything. So you want to look at that. And then, of course, just eye contact, attentiveness, and self-control and things like that. Are they playing when you're talking, things of that nature. So that's one of the things, or several things to consider. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I communicate the results. Next slide, please, if you would. I communicate the results through email. Either I will say, hey, congratulations, you made it to the second round, or you've made percussion, or you need to progress to the wind instrument testing. So I'll do that. The next thing is the beginner pack. So when I have them buy things, we all have different things that we have them purchase with the beginner packs. And one of the things that I have is the pad. And I use a Sabian quiet tone pad, just like this. You have to have a snare stand, obviously. Snare drum sticks is something that I have them get. Marimba mallets, because we have a practice marimba that they use. A metronome. Yes, I still have them get a standalone metronome. And I do that because the metronome gets taken, or their phones get taken from them whenever trouble arises. And the last one that kind of gets sometimes overlooked is the music stand at home. Like, don't forget to have them get a music stand, because that's very important. And then I also have them obviously get a stick bag, because they need to be able to carry all that stuff. They take just the sticks and mallets back and forth to school, along with their book and their binder. I also have them get a pedagogy book, of course. And at school, they have their pad and their marimba, and so they don't have to transfer those things. I have a spring meeting where I talk to all the parents and get them on board with whatever that it is, all these things in the packs to purchase. I like to talk to them ahead of time before they do that, so that they know what they're purchasing and why, and they can communicate that. And then I send the link to the pack. And what I do is I do packs, and that just as an example, I do it through Lone Star Percussion, but they have a pack where they click on it, it populates the list, and they just order it all there. Okay, so good. Now let's go ahead and get to the next slide. That's called Ready to Play. Awesome. Now, what I like to do is I start with the metronome. And I use, with the metronome, I use a notation you'll see in a second, triangles and dots, where all they see are the triangles and the dots. And the triangles are downbeats and the dots are upbeats. And so I turn that metronome on, they're seated, and they just tap their toe. And they whisper count the counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's very useful because the triangles and the dots show them a physical representation of the downbeats and the upbeats. So the first thing that they do is tap their toe with that, and they have a great opportunity to hold a standard. What I mean by that is the first time they tap their toe for you is the first time that you get to really get them to pay attention to the exactness of something. In other words, is their foot touching the ground exactly with the downbeat? And what happens through that is they start to recognize it themselves. They start to see like, okay, hey, was that early or late? And they'll, oh, that was early. Oh, somebody came in late right there. That awareness and that standard starts right away from day one. Then once we kind of get that, I start with the door knock hinge, because before they get any sticks or anything, you want them to be able to move their hand up and down just like this, their wrist. And with the wrist like that, you can see some of that non-dominance that comes out, and you get them to kind of work through that a little bit. And you just go as slow as you need to do that, but they can get that door knock concept. You can also do that with tennis balls or a basketball, anything to get them moving their hands. This is also good whenever they move their hands like this, but I think that's a great practice to do ahead of time before they get sticks in their hands, to just move the door knock hinge and that whole thing. Once you're about to play, you want to have them set up their pad, and there's a couple of workspace things that I like to do. That is, I have the music stand here, and I have the legs of the music stand and the leg of the pad stand kind of put together in a certain way. As you can see, like my music stand is down low, and you want to keep your music stand down low so that they can see, or the instructor can see their hands. As soon as they put the music stand right here, you can't really give them any feedback. So I have them do that. A couple little tricks that I do with the pad is I put these dots on the pad, the right dot and the left dot, because those are playing positions. The snare drum has 2 separate playing positions. And then this red tape here shows the angle of their hands. And one thing that this does is it takes all the ambiguity out of where am I supposed to be striking the pad and what angle am I supposed to be holding my sticks at. And so now a student can just get over their dots, which you'll hear me say. I'll say dots, and they'll go to this position over their dots, and then they'll come up. And that's what you'll see. So this is a really nice way to do that. Now I do that with 2 quarters, and then you put Scotch tape over it. And if you put the Scotch tape over it, it doesn't change the sound, and the dots never wear off. Like this pad I'm playing on gets played on, and the dots are still on, no problem. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now I like to do, with the holding of the stick, you want to start 1/3 of the way up the stick like this, and you want to put your thumb down on the stick, just like that. And I always say thumbprint on the stick, and then wrap it around. And what you're looking for here is no gaps here. The letter Y is what you're looking for. So you can see the Y. And the reason why I say it's a Y and not a V is because of the seam that runs down the hand. That's very important, because what happens is they want to keep that open and you want to keep that closed. So the thumb is down, and I try to tell them not to have this too much higher than this knuckle. It can be a little higher, but it should be about the same. And then they just gently wrap their fingers around the stick, and it should become protruding from the outside of the hand right here. This little soft cushion on the hand is called the break. So that's something, when I go through here, you've got a Y and you've got a reverse Y, and then the stick coming out with a break, and that gives you a nice relaxed angle. So I'll have them put their sticks down by their sides, take a deep breath, pick their sticks up like this. Now they're in this position, and then I have them come up and down to show that their wrists are moving the sticks. So this is super important, just to trace the path of the stick. Trace the path of the stick. Now let's go ahead and click to the next slide. Now with this one, we're going to play the stroke. So with this stroke here, you're going for what you call a rebound stroke. And this is where I think where you can lose some ground right away. If the students are grabbing the stick really tight in the back, their hands can look all set, but what's happening is the stick is not able to pivot in the fulcrum, because that is what a fulcrum is. It's the point from which something pivots. So that pivoting allows the stick to bounce off the pad or rebound off the pad. This is what's called the rebound stroke. So when they're trying to do this, you want to make sure that they're getting the rebound off the pad. And we start with isolated strokes, meaning that the stick hits and then it stops and freezes in place. In other words, they should be able to take a picture before you start and when you finish, and those pictures should match. Once they get pretty good at doing their right and their left, I have them play what we call a double stop, which is both sticks at once. And what you want to hear when you play a double stop is a pop. And one popular thing that the kids do is they'll go, we say this together, this plus this equals this. This plus this equals this. And what that's trying to get across is that both strokes are the same in the double stop as they would be by themselves. What you'll see when you ask kids to play a double stop is that they think two together means to really smash it, but you want to get right away that it's not. It's just like that. All right. So now they are playing. The first thing that they see are these foot tap notations here. So on the screen, you'll see how it's got the foot tap showing the downs and ups over the triangles and dots, and they'll whisper. So I'll have them just whisper count that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what happens right there. They'll go straight through and they'll say 1. Guys, let's go ahead and stand up. Let's go to the next slide. And to the next one. Keep going. And again. I think we got behind there. All right. And that's the one. Now we're at the second phase of this. So guys, they're going to do the first phase where they just count it. So guys, this is the first one where we don't play. We just count 1. Ready? Sticks down by your sides. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, so on that, the changing of their voice represents when they play. So you're right away getting from the timing of the foot tap, the whispering of the counts, showing that the counts do have values, and then the changing of the voice represents when they play. So then on this next one, you'll see it. They have just an R and an L, and they've got B's, and they actually play these strokes. And these are isolated rebound strokes. Ready? Dots. This is number 2. Up. And 1, 2, ready, and. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Cool. Next slide. And on the next one, they just do 2 notes in a row. Still isolated though. And 1, 2, and ready, and go. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, relax. Once again, these are our students from Tidwell Medlin Middle School that have so graciously joined me tonight to do this. They also did the clinic with me at Midwest, and these are current beginning percussion students. These are students that just learn how to play starting in August or September. So that's what their experience level is. Now we're on the next slide. So from that, I piggyback off that and I start talking about note ratios. Now what I mean by note ratios is 1 note for every 1 beat. Basically a quarter note concept, but thinking about it from a note ratio standpoint. Every time there's a beat, there's a note. So this is the 1-to-1 note ratio. Guys, let's play it. Dots. Up. Put your foot with the metronome and your hands with your feet. And 1, 2, ready, and. All right, relax, guys. Good. So as you can see, they're pulse counting their quarter notes. 1, 2. What that's doing is it's showing them what that space is like, that the beat is not just a singular spot. That's only the point of articulation. The beat is a full space, and pulsing through it will get them to handle that space, because that's always a thing. Now, on this next example that you see, I finally add in the quarter notes. Once they go from the 1-to-1 note ratio, doing quarter notes is easy. All they'll see is a full line of 4/4 or 3/4 or 2/4 as their time signature, and we tie it all together. And they already have a system of doing rest, which is to whisper count. So you're going to see them play this line. They're just going to count full voice for the quarter notes and whisper count the rest. Ready? Here we go, guys. Dots. Up and 1, 2, ready, and.
1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1.
All right, relax and take a seat, guys. Awesome. So now you'll notice too, the stickings. If you have any trouble with stickings on something like this, when you first do stickings, a really good thing to do is to just do double stops on a line like this. So I would just say, hey guys, just do double stops. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that allows them to do is take one less responsibility out of it, right? That's what all the notational stuff was from the beginning. And I'll talk about this during the clinic, which is taking some of the responsibilities away and really scaffolding the instruction so that they're not having to handle everything at once all the time. You can always go back and add in the stickings or add in the notation, but what you're really trying to get is the skills and the concept. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Could you go back a couple? Go back one more. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward here. Go to the next one. Design there. Okay. All right. So I can talk about this a little bit. Okay. So the timeline for the class, I do practice cards. I still do them, and they're turned in on Mondays. My practice cards are from Monday to Monday. And the reason why I run that is because the students, if they have Mondays, will practice over the weekends a little bit more. And to partner with it, I do my tests on Mondays. So I used to do tests on Fridays, and what that does is immediately, like, there's a closure at the end of the week, and then in the weekend, they don't necessarily have the next concept for the week, or if you did, you were only able to get to it for a second, and so there's no forward motion. So I started doing tests on Mondays and practice cards on Mondays so that the students could practice through that weekend, and a lot of times they will on that. So I like to do that. I also go down the row a lot. I think that's hearing students individually is such a big deal. It puts them on the spot a little bit, makes them rise up a little bit for their performance aspect. And I really, really enjoy just hearing them play individually. And then the other part of that is when you put them back together after doing all the individuals, they hear how much better it is. And that's the first time that they really realize how important that their contribution is as a musician. It's one of the most fundamental thought processes that we can have as a musician, is that your performance matters to the group. So that's also very, very important. Now, the next concept I'll get to is the 2-to-1 note ratio. And this is 2 notes for every 1 beat. Now, on this, there's a triangle and a dot. And there, again, the triangle and the dot, which we've been pulsing through, now they'll play both of those notes. And they'll still just do 1 foot tap on the triangle. This is also where I introduce constant motion. So we've been doing isolated motion. Now we're going to do constant motion, which is it is different, and I think that it should be defined a little differently. So guys, why don't we go ahead and play some 8 on the hand. Dots. Up. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Inverted. There's an inverted version that I like to do, changing hands on the upbeat. 1, 2, ready, and. All right, relax for a second. You don't stay standing, but just relax for a second. So guys, with the 8 on the hand, that is the go-to exercise that everybody does. But I will say this. I like to stay with just the general 2-to-1 note ratio first. And what I mean by that is don't be in a hurry to switch hands. I like to just play the right hand. And what I'll do is put the left dot next to it. So I'll put this stick next to it over its dot. Now, what that does is it makes the student have to play the right hand in its space and the left hand in its space. What you'll see when you do this is they'll wander and hit their stick. And that's an indicator that something's not right, especially when they go to their non-dominant hand. It'll wander a lot. So I like to kind of get that. When you start with just a 2-to-1 note ratio, it makes the focus, the stroke and the evenness and the aim and all those kind of things. As soon as you go to 8 on a hand, the goal can be misinterpreted as playing 8 notes and then 8 notes and then 8 notes, if you get my drift. Yeah, the goal becomes just I'm playing this many strokes and that many strokes, when really the goal of 8 on a hand is to work on the transitions between the hands along with your rebound stroke. One of the things I like to do on that is broken 8s. So the same 8 on a hand exercise that you just saw them play, I will have them do with just the starting 2 notes and then the last 2 notes. Guys, let's play broken 8s real quick. This focuses just on their transitions. We can go ahead and go to the next slide as well. 1, 2, and 1, 2, ready, and. Stop. Let's do that one more time. So what you're looking at is the first 2 notes they play, establishing the space between the notes, but then also how they transfer to the other hand. They're trying to make that transfer sound exactly the same. Try it again, guys. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and. Now they'll play 8 on a hand and see if you can find the broken, where those broken moments happen. 1, 2, ready, and. Right? So that's where you can hear where those transitions happen, and that's what you want to really focus on. We also, we work on our speed, which is important. We'll go a little bit faster. One more time, guys, on 8 on a hand, this speed. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Relax. All right, guys. So the next part of this is independence. So when we're doing independence, I think the first phase of independence is when you're playing these note ratios, like be it 1-to-1, 2-to-1, or 8 on a hand, is stillness in the other hand. So look out for this hand wandering or dipping or moving around while the other hand's moving around. That means that this hand is not as independent from the other hand. So the first phase of independence is just that, like not moving the other hand or be able to not do that. The next phase of it is being able to add a hand or take a hand away. So this next thing that we're going to do, let's go to the next slide, works on these transitions. These are called 2-to-1 transitions. 2-to-1 transitions where they will play a couple double stops, and they'll take a hand away or add a hand. So guys, let's play these. Let's play the first 4 of them, but and repeat each one. Okay. Let's go. Dots. Up. Each one twice. So then the next one. 1, 2, ready, and. Next one. 3. All right. Stop. Yeah, just the first 4. And then we do another 8 on a hand variation that just uses these same things. Let's play the first double stop 8 on a hand pattern, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, double stops, go. Right, 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 right. And stop. All right, cool. Guys, relax, take a seat. Awesome. Playing great. All right, so now we're going to talk about some self and peer evaluation, something that I really feel really strongly about. The most important thing that we teach the students is awareness. And I've seen this so many times. You know, we say, hey, you know, you need to go practice that. Well, if they don't know what it's supposed to look like or sound like or feel like, then even when they go practice, they're not able to really process what's supposed to be going on or what their goals are. What am I supposed to be getting out of this rebound stroke? Should the stick, should it just come up or should it bounce up? What should it sound like? Should it sound like this or that, right? And so we have all this information that we give them. And one of the things that I do, one of my favorite times of the year is when we first start early on, we get through chapter 1 or whatever, and we have our first test, and we do it in person. And we play through, each person goes down the line and they play through the test. And the last person finishes and they sit down, they're all nervous. And I look at the class and I go, who won? And they just look around. They don't know how to answer that question because we're not supposed to talk about that. No, we're not supposed to talk about who we thought was the best or who we thought won. We're not supposed to talk about that. Well, then finally, I just stare at them long enough and they raise their hands and one by one. And somebody will raise their hand and they go, I think Jimmy won. Okay, why do you think Jimmy won? Well, because he played really loud. He played loud. Okay, cool. And then, okay, who else do you think won? Oh, well, Larry won. Okay, why Larry won? Well, because his pad is really high. His pad is set up really high, and I like the way his pad's set up. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any reasons why they don't think Jimmy won? And then somebody will raise their hand. And then you'll get, well, you said that we were supposed to like tap our toe while we played, and Jimmy didn't tap his toe. You're correct. Jimmy didn't win. We're supposed to tap our toe when we play, right? Anybody think Larry didn't win, or there's a reason that would have kept Larry from winning? Somebody raise their hand. Yeah, well, you said we were supposed to like count out loud and stuff. Yes, I did. We are supposed to count out loud. Larry did not win. Anybody have a reason why they don't think Beth won? You know, you said that we had to stay with the metronome, and I noticed that she wasn't with the metronome. I know some people thought that she should have won, but she wasn't with the metronome. That's right. And then somebody goes, ooh, ooh, ooh. John won. Why do you think that John won? Because they played with a rebound stroke, like it came up just the way we talked about, and they tapped their toe the whole time and they counted, and it was in time. Like it was right with the metronome. It was exactly right. You're correct. John won. And that's the first time that they put it together, that like what you're telling them to do in class is what you're expecting them to work towards, and making them have to identify that concept for themselves, identify those characteristics of what makes a student playing correctly or achieving versus, something that might be false, like how loud they're playing or something like that, or how fast that they're playing. More so geared towards the detail of what they're doing. So that's really important. And that's also what creates value, a value system in your class. The students start valuing achievement and start valuing what they're able to play and not play and work towards those things. I want to talk about percussion being a double articulating instrument and building like both the hands at the same time. Let's go to the next slide. Let me see what this next slide is here. Okay, and then one more. And then one more. All right. And so when we get here, every other instrument pretty much comes from a single point of articulation. It's a single point that you can control that articulation. It always sounds the same. Percussion can be a single articulating instrument where it's one hand playing once or one hand playing the other. But those two articulations have to come together to make a single sounding articulation. And so that's why dealing with your non-dominant hand is so important. One of the concepts that we get into is independence and filling in their hands. So the next step of this independence concept is being able to play a hand and play notes between those hands that you're playing. Guys, let's go ahead and stand up. We're going to play this thing called the one-to-one filled-in builder. The one-to-one filled-in builder, which is, I believe, on the next slide. Yes. The next slide is what it does. It starts out with a foot tap, a measure just to establish your time, and then they play the one-to-one note ratio, and they slowly start filling in beats between it. And the goal is to not change the one-to-one note ratio. So once again, we're adding a hand, but not changing the original hand. Let's play it, guys. Dots. Up. And 1, 2, whisper count, go. Cool. So that's the first time that they start to alternate their hands, and it's they put together that you can play a faster rhythm without your hands actually moving any faster. Your hands are moving the same speed when you do this as when you do this. So they start this fill-in concept, and they start to realize that hand speed and how you can interdisperse them to make rhythms. From this, as I talked about before, the notational thing, just working on this concept and using stickings is really effective. But then we go to the next slide. You can see how we go to eighth notes. It's the same thing, and they're able to transfer easily. Guys, let's play this line. Ready? Might be a page turn for you guys. Yeah, ready? We're up. 1, 2, eighth note example. 1, 2, ready, and. All right, cool. Relax. I'll be right back to you guys. So as you can see, like going from those stickings, it's really literally kind of that easy. When we do the concept of the filling in and you do the one-to-one note ratio, building and scaffolding instruction, by the time you get to those eighth notes alternated, they'll be able to read those lines pretty easily from that notation. Another thing I like to really use are duets. Duets, the kids love the duets. And I don't know why this is, but duets are the first time that they feel like they're playing real music. You'll play unison lines, and they know that that's just a book thing, and I'm just learning. But as soon as they play a duet, they really feel like they're doing something special with it. It also teaches vertical alignment. With the duets, they start to see 2 eighth notes equaling a quarter note, or being able to take up the same amount of space. So what we'll have here is I'll do a duet with them. And the first thing I have is one group on one side count the top and one group count the bottom. And then ultimately we come back once they count it and we play it. Guys, let's go ahead and play this duet for them. Let's go to the next slide. Dots.
Let's do Billy's side on the, or let's do Billy's side on the top that way, and then your side on the bottom.
Ready? Dots. Up. 1, 2, ready, and. Let's do it one more time. Give some really confident counting. And 2, and ready, and go.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And then sometimes have them play stuff without counting it so they can just line it up and play it. Ready? Let's do it without counting. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, relax. Great job, guys. So when they start lining it up like that, they really start to use their ears a lot. And again, understanding that, okay, I was able to play 2/8 notes in the same space as a quarter note. Let's go to the next slide. Another thing I like to talk about, I need to pick up the pace here, are ties. I think that they're missing from percussion pedagogy a little bit. You'll get a lot of times, you'll get a percussion student in your band class, and they'll see a tie or on a fussel line or something, and they won't even know what it is. And that's because it's absent from a lot of our pedagogy that we have. I like to use ties a lot because I think it teaches them addition. It teaches them the pulsing concept that you're talking about. It teaches them how to elongate values. And I really like to use them. I find that it's easy to teach dotted quarter notes that way. We'll play a tie line for you that I have in my material that I use, and it uses some ties that you would expect, like, okay, well, you would never do that. But in that, those 2/8 notes are tied together. It is literally what you're asking them to count when you ask them to pulse count. And so they put that together real quick. They're like, okay, an 1/8 note plus an 1/8 note equals a quarter note. Let's count this tie line real quick, guys. And 1, 2, ready, and go.
1, take 2, take 3, 4, take 1, take 2, 3, take 4, 1, 3, take 4, 2, 3, take 4, take 1.
Yeah. So when they do a tie line like that, obviously they just articulate when they play on the 1/8 note, they just articulate the first one, but they get a concept for those ties right away. Let's go to the next slide real quick. Now, once you get to this point, one of the big points of playing is trying to play different combinations of stickings. A lot of times people start with these really early, and I don't have a problem with that in terms of sticking identification. Like, okay, that's a paradiddle, but it has to be a certain tempo before it actually becomes a paradiddle. And what I mean by that is, if it's so slow that the strokes are isolated, then their hands don't really feel that paradiddle pattern, if that makes sense. So you can do it super early, but just know that they're only identifying those stickings. You're using it for a different purpose than, say, playing a sticking, like playing a paradiddle at full speed or at a moderate speed versus playing it with isolated strokes. So what we have, we're going to play some stickings for you real quick, where they have some different groupings. And I like to tap toes when we do this. I think it's important for perspective. So when they tap their toe, they can differentiate stickings that are similar but different. In other words, like when they have a right hand sticking lead versus a left hand lead, you'll find when they try to tap their toe with that left hand lead, it might really throw them off, which means that they can't process that left hand start. Guys, let's play 5 through 8, or let's play 5 and 6 and stop.
Just 5 and 6 in a row and stop.
Okay, ready? Dots. Up. And 1, 2, ready, go. And stop. Those two rhythms those stickings are very similar, and they have to transition between the right hand and left hand version. Guys, let's play 7 through 10. 7 through 10. 1, 2, groups of 3, and ready and go. And stop. Excellent. Now 11 through 13, these are sort of our paradiddle rudiments. 1, 2, 11 through 13, ready and go. Relax. Excellent job, guys. As you can see, they can navigate through those stickings really well. They feel really relaxed with them. And that's what you want. You want those stickings to all sound the same. And you want it to feel and look easy for the players. I can't tell you how much of that skill transfers to so many things that they're being asked to play. Like if they had to play, their hands are having to go half speed, double speed constantly to play something like that. And that's what these stickings offer. Let's go to the next slide. One of the next things I really like in some of the material that I have is the offset trainer. This is called the one-to-one offset trainer. I typically introduce this the week before we do 8th rest. And this is a really, really neat thing because you're sort of tricking them into learning it. Again, I'm going back to that same concept of I could just put 8th rest out there and stuff, but it's just a lot. The notation and trying to read it is not necessarily the skill that you're trying to get. This offset trainer has some instructions that you can't see here, but it has the first step of it is to play every note, but omit the counting of the optional notes. So those little funny notes that you see on the screen, the ones with the circles and the dots in them, those are optional notes. So they're going to play through a couple phases here where they play the first phase. They're going to play every note and leave out the counting of the note first. And then they're going to reverse that. And then the last step is them playing it as is. All right, guys, here we go. Dots, offset trainer. Think about the first step. Remember, we're leaving out the counting this time. Play everything. Up. 1, 2, ready, go. Now the next step, they're gonna leave out the playing of the optional notes, but they're gonna count every note. Just leaving out the playing. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and. Yeah, so then all they have to do is match up with their voice when they do that. And the final phase is them omitting the counting and the playing. And 1, 2, final phase, and go. Excellent. Relax. So when I introduce that, it's really cool because the student will always go, well, hey, is there a way to like write that? And I will comically just say, you know what? That's a great idea. I'll get on that. Maybe I'll have something for you next week, But they are already figuring out the next step of what you're about to do based on that. The students are easily able to navigate through the downbeats and the upbeats and what it means to just remove a note away from it without all of the necessarily the challenges of the notation. So that's a really good one. It develops verbal independence and teaches partials and all kinds of things. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is an exercise. I'm gonna go through these a little bit faster. This is the eighth note timing. So this is piggybacking a little bit off of what we just did, the eighth rest. Obviously, we introduce eighth rest next, but I like this because it's if you look at it, it's eighth note rhythms that they see a lot, but it's also the patterns that will eventually become one tite, two tite, three tite, the double time version of these patterns. And I like using this as an eighth note one. Guys, let's play this one. Ready? Dots. Up. And 1, 2, ready, go. 1 take, 2 take, 3 take, 4 take, 1 take, 2. Relax. And if you keep going with that concept, 1 take, 2, 3 take, 4, the faster you get, the more it turns into 1 tite, 2 tite, 3 tite. So it's teaching them the basis of those rhythms and the sticking system, while also exposing them to the rhythms that they'll see in eighth note time. You also notice I write it with the separated eighth note and also with the tied eighth notes. I do that a lot where I show the notations in both ways. And that also goes for placing stems upside down. I like to do that a lot so that they have to read the stems up and down so they get used to it. Hopefully, that they're ready for anything. Let's go to the next slide. And we may, guys, go ahead and take a seat. We may skip a few here to kind of get there. This is where I'm talking about teaching a note ratio with the dot triangles and dots. I like to teach the 4-to-1 note ratio or 16th notes using one hand first. So 1 tita, 2 tita, 3 tita, 4 tita. It's a good way to just introduce it to them. And I'll usually do that about a week before that they'll do 16th notes. And it just gets them used to dividing the beat down one more and tapping their toe. And that's really effective. I do that with the regular 8 on a hand and inverted so that they have to get that first space of 1 tita, 2 tita, right? Because when they finally alternate 1 tita, that's the first space that they play in 16ths. So if you just do inverted 8s in that format, you get that hand transition, if that makes sense. 1 tita, 2 tita, 1 tita, 2 tita. So that's what kind of gets them ready to handle that first space, what they have there. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. From there, they play the 2-to-1 filled-in builder, and that's just the same as what they played when they did like the 1-to-1 filled-in builder. Only this is working on the 16th notes. Now, so that's a concept that they get where basically if I play quarter notes and I fill it in, it makes eighth notes. If I play eighth notes with one hand and I fill it in, it makes 16th notes. 16th notes, 32nd notes. That's something that they start getting that concept. You want the students to know that every time they're playing a rhythm, whatever hand they're starting with is playing with the rhythm below it. So, because when I want the students to play 16th notes, I want them to think about eighth notes. So this next builder will show them that. Guys, let's play the 2-to-1 builder, 2-to-1 filled-in builder. Got that? Yeah, cool. Let's go. Dots and up. 1, 2, ready, and. All right, let's go ahead and play the duet. Go ahead and click to a couple slides till you get to the duet there. Same groups as last time, right? Who had the top, who had the bottom? Ready? And one more. Let's do one more slide. Yeah, yes. 1, 2, thank you. Ready, and go. One more time on that one, guys. We got our groups together. Ready? 1, 2, had a group mix up. And go. All right, cool. And then
Let's go ahead and play. Go ahead, guys, play the etude.
now, this is the etude. This will be the last thing that they play. I can handle everything else for them with this, but this is the etude that they're going to play for you. And this is just an example of, I like to have etudes because it gives them a sense of finality in the chapters that they play, and it gives them an opportunity to have some more advanced techniques. It's been a while since they've played this one, but it's a fun one for them to play. You guys ready? All right. Don't forget about the pickup notes, yeah? All right. Dots. Up. And 1, 2, ready, go. All right, relax. Great. So guys, go ahead and take a seat. So once you kind of get to this point, we do some things with our diddles. They're ready to start playing their 16th rhythms, their diddles. We have a diddle progression exercise that we play where they are keeping this hand constant and just adding the diddle on top of it. I do want to get an opportunity to have to play a little bit of mallets for you guys and talk about that just a little bit. But that from there, you're doing some more advanced things, and it all starts to work together because they do have their timing. They do understand their rhythms. And with that rebound stroke, if their rebound stroke is established well with fingers on the stick and everything as it should be, the other techniques will fall into place. A lot of the roadblocks come from just understanding the rhythm and understanding the timing and the notation. Guys, why don't you go ahead and go to the marimbas? With the marimbas, the first thing that I learned on the mallets, and we can go all the way to the mallet section of the handout. The first thing I have them do is the musical alphabet. Now, with the musical alphabet, I set up in a grid where they horizontally and vertically. And the reason why I do it horizontally and vertically is so that they can see how it works on the instrument as well as how it works on the staff. So they'll say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. They'll go forwards and backwards. Eventually, when we get to the marimbas, I'll have them touch those keys and do it with their index fingers. So that, again, they can see the layout of the instrument and how the musical alphabet works on it. The next thing we do is we hold the mallets. And what I talk about with the mallets is holding it, again, 1/3 of the way up the mallet. And that doesn't count the head of the mallet. So I like to go to 1/3 here. And then there's a thumb and index finger again. So this is an uppercase T. This is the uppercase T that I like to use. And then gently put the mallets down. The fingers down, excuse me. Now, when you do this, a marimba, typically, for real, a marimba does not have any rebound. If I was to just throw this mallet down, it just sticks into the wood. There is absolutely none. And that's why this stroke is called a piston stroke. So the piston stroke kind of works on its own. When we do this, you want to make sure that they have gotten a nice established rebound stroke on the pad. With the rebound stroke on the pad established, they can at least try to imitate that technique. That's why I would recommend starting mallets not right away. You want to start their hands, get their hands working, get that door knock working, get the rebound working so that all goes. The next thing I have them do is just start playing on the instrument one note at a time. And these notes are all in the same spot. So what they'll do is they'll play shift, shift. So once they establish being able to play on one note in the same spot, I start having them shift to the next note. This concept grows and grows until they play an exercise called 4-3-2-1-1, where they're playing octaves and moving and shifting their hands. The idea of this exercise is to keep this moving the same regardless of what happens here. So it starts out where they have a lot of time between movements, and eventually they have no time between movements. All right, let's play 4-3-2-1-1 for the guys. We're up. 1, 2, and 1, 2, ready, and. Go ahead and put your mouths down. So that's 4-3-2-1-1. Once they get to the ones and they're having to move in octaves, they're having to control their spacing and their hands and the coordination there. And so it can be a bit of a challenge. That's a great one to play. And it gets them really confident on the instrument and like what it means to play marimba and move around on the marimba. It gives them a ton of confidence there with that. In terms of teaching them where the notes are, I like to teach them the names of the white keys first and not with the absence of the black key names. So all we talk about is to the left of the 2 bars, to the right of the 2 bars, the left of the 3 bars. One of my favorites is to say in the left garage, because if you look at the 3 black keys, it looks like a garage, the 2 bars that are between the G and the A. So I'll say in the left garage and the A is in the right garage. They really get that. Instead of, you can say, okay, it's the left of the first 2 bars of the 3 bars, but that's a lot to say. The left garage and the right garage works really well. Once we learn half steps, that's when I really go into teaching them the names of those notes so that they have meaning, like a C sharp or a D flat. And so I start with just the white key names, and then I go to the black key names from teaching them half steps. A couple other things I would say is reading and playing mallets. I would start with black keys first. So the first thing that you want them to play, I would start out with a C sharp to play and read. And then immediately after that, play a C to do that. And the reason why I say that is when you play mallets, your stand is going to be down low in front of the marimba or whatever mallet instrument they're playing so that they can use their peripheral vision. Their peripheral vision is very strong at the black keys. They're very strong at your F sharps and G sharps and all that. And so hitting one of those mallets, those bars correctly is really much easier than hitting, say, the bar that's to the left of that farther away from their principal vision. So the way I set it up in my stuff is I have them play a C sharp, and then they read a line with C. And then they'll play D flat and E flat, and then they'll play the D because it's between those 2. I think that really, really works well. I do play tetrachords. And so I'll have the students play and through all the circle fourths. And eventually we put those tetrachords together into their scales. And with arpeggios. So that's typically the pathway that I use there to get to their scales. I'll use tetrachords and I use to build their scales off of, and eventually their arpeggios. Once you get to that point, you can get into thirds, which I think are a good one to get their spacing and understand the structure of the scales a little bit more, to thirds, and then of course green or 2-octave scales. The 2-octave scales can be overlooked sometimes, but I would definitely do the 2-octave scales. In my conclusion of the clinic, I would just say that higher starting points equal higher finishing points. If you can get pretty far with everything in the beginner year, it's just going to set the stage and set the pace for them progressing farther and faster and better. And so, I think pushing them in that first year and then trying to get them to play some more advanced things or playing things at a super high level, more importantly, is really, really important. Last but not least, if you, in my last slide that I have, if you are interested in any of the material that I'm talking about, I did put all of these ideas in a book, Firm Foundations for the Beginning Percussionist. I wrote this book because of all the offset trainer, the scaffolding instruction, the way that I teach reading music on the mallets, all the triangles and the dots, giving some more material to actually learn how to play rhythms. That's what this entire material is about, making the experience easier for the teacher and the student. And that's what I put this book together. So there's a QR code on the next slide if you are interested in this book, and you can get it. And you can even email me anytime you have any questions or anything about it. And I'd be glad to talk you through the pedagogy of it. I've already done that with lots of people, and I enjoy doing that and enjoy helping people do this, because this is truly my favorite thing to do is to teach beginners. I have the drumline thing at the high school, and we do all of that stuff, and it's great, all state and all that. But I really enjoy teaching the beginners and seeing how far we can get with them, because the farther you can get with them, the farther every level will progress, the more everything will happen. So that's all that I have, and we can talk with Rick and get some questions.
Yeah, that's great. Well, first of all, thank you, John, for what a wonderful clinic, being part of our educational series, and for all the students too, who did a phenomenal job. Appreciate that. We do have a couple of questions. I do want to remind our viewers that immediately following this, you should get an email with your professional development certificate. So, John, one of the questions is, with students who have a tendency to over-control the stick and not allow for the pivot at the fulcrum, how do you typically address this? And is there anything that you commonly employ to encounter this in students who have a hard time producing the more fluid stroke?
Perfect. That's a fantastic question. Before I go any step farther, I do want to recognize these students one more time. You guys can see them here in the screen. We got Abigail, Sawyer, Elijah, Isaiah, Billy, Max, and Jack. So I couldn't have done this with them. So I just want to make sure to recognize these guys. Now, to get to that point, what we're talking about, what a great question. So what I start with on the stroke, before I even do the stroke, is a couple things. My favorite is the Statue of Liberty, where I'll have them just hold the stick up like this and just very relaxed, just let the stick fall. Now look what happened when it fell. See that kickback, that stick just kicks back. And it can start out really fairly loose and kind of just haphazard. And eventually you want it to kick into the fingers. That's a very important point. You want it to kick in the fingers, and you want to keep this fulcrum together. So it goes from being kind of haphazard to more controlled like this. And then the next step, I do bounces like this. Now with the bounces, they're getting all these multiple bounces that just show how the stick rebounds off the head. And then that turns into one stroke. That's how they get the sensation of rebound first. The sensation is what sticks with them, and it transfers into the stroke, and they understand that immediately. Cool.
Here's another question from Les in California. First of all, says, congratulations on being a brilliant teacher and what looks like an amazing school district. But what if you are a woodwind player in a tiny high school district with no feeder program, and every student is a virtual beginner?
Okay, well, that's one thing that I would do then is I like to record the classes. I know if you're having Zoom, I had more success last year when I started recording classes. And that way the students would have some material that's not laggy, not interrupted, things like that. Also, I will say, now I'm not just trying to plug my book here, but in my book, I have tons and tons of explanations and diagrams for this reason, because I wanted my book to be usable by people that are not necessarily percussionists, so that the kids can have some visuals to work through. So I would focus on the videos, like creating some independent videos that they have to do, and maybe submit videos back that you can give feedback to. Have them do the Statue of Liberty, have them do the bounces, and then the stroke, and have them submit that. So create a video with some short content to get a skill across, have them submit a video back showing or demonstrating that, and then supplement with the Zoom classes where you're doing stuff together. That's what I would do.
And as a reminder, if you're in the chat section, you can download the handouts that John was talking about as well, that you'd be able to use those virtually as well. And we do have one last question from a gentleman who I believe you might have heard of. Chris Hankus asks a question here. Yes. Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't at least ask his question. But he says here, when your students count, it sounds like they are even matching pitch with their voices. Is this an aspect of ear training that you teach, encourage, or does this just happen organically?
It does. It started out organically, and then people point out, they're doing a minor third and that kind of thing. I do think that it does teach them ensemble skills. When they started doing that, I found that my students were doing that. It was a byproduct, and I decided to keep it because it does teach ensemble skills. Another way to do that, and I explained this the other day, is have them say the Pledge of Allegiance together and just try to say it as a single voice. So yeah, I'm definitely all into a unified counting sound, matching pitch, and that kind of thing. It does play into that, but it did in the beginning, Chris. It started organically. I didn't do it on purpose and think it up. It just happened, and then I was like, okay, I like this. So.
Well, we've got another one here, as long as people are staying on.
Sure.
How are your percussionist classes structured after the first year? Just something briefly about that.
Cool. And then also, I don't want to get away from this. This beautiful instrument that I'm using is the majestic Gateway marimba, the best practice marimba on the market. So all my kids rent this marimba at home, and then I have these at school. And these are super great instruments. So the instruments you heard are practice marimbas that we use, and they are fantastic. On the structure of the class, I want to talk about the rotation that I do. I'm not teaching them in 7th grade and 8th grade as a percussion class. They are in band classes. So 6th grade, they're in homogeneous classes. We do percussion. We get them as far as we can. Then they go into band classes in 7th and 8th grade. I see them twice a week. So I'll do a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday rotation at Medlin and Tidwell. And then on Friday, they have their band classes, uninterrupted, so that their band directors can have them all the time. When they go to high school, I have them in first period. Now, this varies across the state, but in mine, I keep the percussionists in first period all the time, and they have band rehearsals before school, and they just have to be ready. A lot of other schools will have them go into their band classes in the spring semester so that they're in that more often. But that's how I structure mine.
All right, and one last one here from Nick Milliner. At what point after the students have progressed through these phases do you introduce traditional rudiments to them?
I'm doing them. Our 7th graders, I do a lot of. Now, some of the rudiments are in the book, and we do them this year. They through the when you're talking about their stickings, they'll learn the paradiddle, right? But at some point during the year, we'll do our downstrokes and get that more in accent patterns and stuff, and then we'll start talking about that. There's a lot of flam rudiments towards the end of the book. And then in 7th grade, I hit that pretty hard. I do really believe in teaching the rudiments in that way. I don't, do all of them, obviously, but I still definitely believe in doing the rudiments, and I hit that a lot harder in 7th grade. It's a great vehicle for them to continue feeling like they're improving and getting better, because it's such a different world. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thanks again, John, and thank all your students for us. And I'm sure if you wanted to take your kids out for pizza and soda, I'm sure I can get Majestic to probably foot the bill for you there. Can the kids hear me? Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Well, once again, want to thank all our attendees for being here, and we appreciate it. Look out for some more of our virtual education series. And John, great job. Always good to listen to you and your pedagogy approaches.
Thank you so much. I'm so privileged to be here and thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right, everyone have a good night.